review a common question that is confusing for people, both normals and patients with different diseases, answering what sounds like a very simple question, but it's actually a little more complicated. And that is, how much water do you actually drink? So that's what we're going to focus on today. But before doing that, I wanted to go through the concept of water balance. Now, in a general sense, this refers to water coming into the body and water leaving the body. And so we need to think of all the sources of how water can get in and how water can get out. The overall concept is that these are equal. So it's like a bank. You put money in and you spend a certain amount of money that you put in, and the amount of money you have in the bank doesn't change. It's the same with water. Every day we put water in and water leaves, and those amounts are equal. So the amount of water in our body stays the same. And this is a theme I'm going to be going over and over and over again. So let's look at the sources of water. From the food and what we drink, there's about 2.2 liters a day, about a 2-liter Coke bottle. Now, a little more complicated to think about is that we actually generate water from the foods that we eat, about 1/3 of a liter a day. This is not water that you can see, and is not water that is in the food like a piece of fruit. This is water that's generated from the dried particulate matter of the food internally through different biochemical pathways, and it's about 1/3 of a liter a day, so that the total going in is at 2.2 plus 0.3, so about 2.5 liters. Now, every day from the skin and from our breathing, we lose about 1 liter a day. It's called insensible water loss. The urine is about 1.5 liters, and in the stool, we lose another 1/10 of a liter. So that total output is 2.5 liters, which equals the input, and everything balances out. Now, obviously, these numbers could change markedly. You know, some people drink 4 liters a day, some people, but in general, these numbers will change, especially the kidney. This insensible water loss stays about the same. The stool is about the same. So with changes in input, it's the kidney that recognizes that, and this number, 1.5 liters, goes up and down based on changes in this. These other numbers stay about the same. Now, that's the in and the out, but we have a certain amount of water in our body all the time. And you can think of it as a percentage. This is the percentage of our total body weight that's water. Men have a greater percentage than women do. So women have less water relative to their weight in their body that men do. And the difference is made up with fat. Women have more fat in their body than men do. So, but as a percent of the total body weight, this is what it is for men, and this is what it is for women. And it varies, but we'll narrow that down just so you can think about it more clearly. So when you think about it, let's now calculate how much water you have in your body. In a man, it's about 60% of your weight in kilos, not pounds, kilos. And the answer is in liters. So if you weigh 70 kilo, the average weight of a typical man, 60% of that is 42, and that is 42 liters of water are in this person's body. Now, in a woman who has a lower percentage, not 60, but let's say 55% of her weight in kilos is water. So 55%, and let's say she weighs 55 kilo, typical weight for the average woman, that gives us 30 liters. So in her body, there are 30 liters of water. So we have an in and an out, and we have an amount of water in the body. It's just like your bank. You put money in, you withdraw money, and you have a certain amount of money in your bank. Now, let's convert some of these units. 1 liter is 4 glasses of water, which is 64 ounces, which is about 2.2 pounds. We're all talking about the same thing, these different names, pounds, ounces, glasses, and liters are what we call in chemistry or physics different units. You're not saying anything different, though. It's like you're translating it from Latin to Spanish to English. It's all the same amount. It's just called different words. Okay, but that just gives you an idea. In medicine, we tend to think of liters. So let's now take an average man and an average woman. As I said before, an average man has about 42 liters, 60% times 70 kilo is 42 liters of water in his body. And the average woman is 30 liters. Now, let's look at how this relates to these terms that we hear about all the time. I'm dehydrated, I'm hydrated, I'm overhydrated, people don't usually use. But when you use the term hydrated, what you should be saying is that you have the appropriate amount of water in your body. So for a man, it would be he has 42 liters, woman 30 liters, and that's called hydrated properly. Dehydrated would mean that this number decreased. So anything, let's say if it goes to 41 or 40 or 39, that man would be dehydrated. Or 29 or 28 for this woman, she'd be dehydrated. So dehydrated and hydrated aren't words you should just throw around. You need to use them in a precise way. And what you're saying when you use these words is how much water do I have in my body relative to what I always have. If it's less than you always have, you're dehydrated. If it is what you always have, you're just hydrated properly. Now, it could be more. This could go to 43 or 44 or 45, and then you're overhydrated. Now, this figure just shows the change with age in men and women. The x-axis is age, going from 0 to 95. The blue is men, and the yellow is women. And on the y-axis is the total body water. It happens to be in kilos, but 1 kilo is 1 liter. So you can have this unit as liters here. It doesn't make a difference. But what you see is as someone ages, both in men and women, their total body water goes up. That's should be. Their body's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They have more water in their body. And then by the time you're 15, 16, 17, it stays about the same. So women plateau at a lower total body water. Men are at a higher total body water. As I said, men are around 42. Women are less. But you can see here, as you get older, the amount of water in your body actually declines. You have less water for your out of your total weight. And this shows the total body water divided by your weight as a percent, that percent that I talked about before. Again, men are higher than women. And that percent is pretty constant, although it starts to go down again as you get older. Okay, but the bottom line is between the age of 16 and 55 or 60, you have the same amount of water in your body. Now, remember, this is occurring despite the fact that you're drinking different amounts every day. But it's because, as I showed before, the kidney recognizes that and makes sure that the total body water stays the same, no matter what you do with your intake. And I'll show that here on a slide. So let's say you have a person, a male with 42 liters of water in their body. They're drinking 2 liters of water a day. Well, the kidney is just going to dump that so that they still have 42 liters. You don't gain water in your body by drinking water unless the kidney can't dump it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But normally the kidney just recognizes what you're putting in and gets rid of the amount that it needs to keep your total body water constant. Now let's take a person who is drinking 12 liters of water a day. So, you know, this is 12 times 4 glass, that's 48 glasses of water a day. Well, again, you have 42 liters at the end of the day because the kidney's just going to dump it all. You're not going to retain water if you have a normal kidney. The kidney can dump up to, if you go much above 12, then the kidney can't increase it anymore. And then you start getting overhydrated. But normally, your kidney is going to just match what you're taking in, minus the insensible losses that I talk about. You have that roughly 0.9 liter loss in your the skin, breathing, and a little bit of loss in the stool. But the rest, the kidney, that's constant though. That's about a liter a day. The kidney's going to make up the difference to match the intake. Let's say you do the opposite. Let's say you decide today you're only going to drink 2 glasses of water a day, half a liter. Well, the kidney will decrease its output to half a liter, roughly, to match it again. Again, you still have 42 liters of water in your body. So the misconception that most lay people have, and many doctors actually, is that you can change the amount of water in your body by drinking. But that ignores the fact that you have an output system that matches it. And an extreme of this, I just want to show here, this is the most expensive water on the planet. It's from Japan. It's called Filico water. So 4 glasses of water costs you $1,390. Let's say you decided to drink 2.5 liters of that today. All you're going to do is take the $1,390 and put it in the toilet. You're just taking it in and your kidney's dumping it. So there's no magic retention of this water in your body to magically heal you. This is the fallacy that most people have about drinking water. They think that it stays in the body somehow and does all sorts of magic things. It doesn't. And that's sort of the major take-home message of what I want to talk about today. So all the water and all the fluid that you're taking in ends up in the toilet. Now, it doesn't always, because you can have diseases that affect the kidney's ability to get rid of water. The kidney is affected in many liver diseases, could be kidney disease per se, could be heart disease. In all these entities, the kidney decreases its ability to get rid of water. And you could have a severe impairment such that if you're taking in your normal 2.5 liters a day, the kidney can only get rid of 1.5 liters that day. And therefore, you're going to have retained 1 liter, and your total body water is going to go from 42 to 43. And that's called overhydration. And that's associated with elevated blood pressure. Your ankles may start swelling because the water tends to by gravity accumulate in the ankles when you stand all day, et cetera, et cetera. So this would be an overhydrated patient, not because they drank more than normal, but the kidney is impaired in its ability to modulate the water output such that the in and out are equal, keeping it 42. But in general, unless you have these diseases, the kidney will just match whatever you're doing on the input side. However, if you spend time on any time on social media or visited an athletic event lately, you've surely been bombarded with encouragements to drink more water. There's celebrity influencers lugging around gallon-sized water bottles as the hot new accessory. Twitter bots constantly remind us to drink more and more and more water. Some reusable water bottles even come with motivational phrases such as "remember your goal, keep drinking, almost finished," to encourage you to keep drinking throughout the day. And the purported benefits of excess water consumption are endless, from improved memory to mental health to increased energy to better complexions. Stay hydrated has become a new version of the old salutation, stay healthy. So we get flooded all day with drink water, drink water, drink water, stay hydrated. But what exactly does it mean to stay hydrated? When lay people discuss dehydration, they mean loss of any fluid. But that interpretation has been used way out of proportion. Staying hydrated is definitely important, but the idea that the simple act of drinking more water will make you healthier is just absolutely not true. Nor is it correct that most people are walking around dehydrated chronically, or that we should be drinking all day long is a fallacy. We've all been taught that 8-ounce glasses of water per day, or eight ounce glasses is the magic number for everyone, but that's a myth. There are factors like body size, outdoor temperature, how hard you're breathing, whether you're sweating. These will determine how much you need. A 200-pound person who just hiked 10 miles in the heat will obviously need to drink more water than a 120-pound office manager who spent the day in a temperature-controlled building. So again, it depends what the losses are and what the kidney is able to do. If you're sweating a lot, then your losses on the skin side here are going to be far greater. In fact, there are diseases where you just sweat a lot. And there was an old story of this woman. She was sitting in a chair waiting for an interview. And when she sat up, there was like a couple of liters on the seat from just sweating from nervousness. So you can lose a lot of water sweating. And obviously that has to be replaced. But we have a mechanism for knowing whether it has to be replaced, and that's thirst. And I'll talk about that. We have this amazing mechanism to tell us how much we should drink, that we don't have to think how much we should drink or drive the system based on what we've been bombarded with over the last 25 years from print and social media. We have this mechanism in our brain that says drink or don't drink, and it's called thirst. So the amount of water you need in a day will also depend on your health. People that have kidney disease need less water because they can't get rid of the water. And if they take too much water, depends on the magnitude of their kidney disease, obviously. The worse the kidney disease, the less water the kidney can get rid of, and therefore you have to cut back on the intake side. Whereas someone taking a diuretic who's peeing a lot more, they'll get their total body water won't be 42. It'll decrease unless they increase the intake. But their thirst mechanism will tell them to drink more. They don't have to try to match what the diuretic is doing. Or you may need to alter the intake if you've been vomiting or have diarrhea. There you have a gastrointestinal loss of water, and you'll get dehydrated unless you match it with an increased intake. But again, you'll be thirsty unless you have something else going on. What exactly does it mean then to stay hydrated? When lay people discuss dehydration, they mean loss of any fluid. For most healthy people, the best way to stay hydrated is simply to drink when you're thirsty. Now, those people who are older, in their 70s and 80s, may need to pay a little more attention to what they're drinking, because you start losing your ability to sense thirst as intently as you can when you're younger. So there are certain situations in the elderly where they don't recognize that they need to take water just because the brain is not perceiving thirst like it did when you're younger. But those are pretty rare. People in their 70s and 80s and 90s can still sense thirst very well for the most part. Despite popular belief, we also don't rely on the urine color. Some people think when their urine turns very yellow, they're dehydrated and they need to drink more. It's possible that dark yellow or amber urine could mean that you're dehydrated, but there's no solid science to suggest that color alone is a good way to follow whether you need to drink or not. So it's just not a good way to know whether you need to drink. So, and also, do you have to drink water? Not necessarily. Water is probably a better choice than sugary sodas or fruit juices, because you got a lot of calories coming in when you drink those. When you have the choice of a fruit, eat a fruit versus the same amount of calories that are in. So you have two entities. One is a orange, and then you have orange juice with the exact same amount of calories as the orange. But the problem is that the juice will be absorbed efficiently and very quickly, and you're going to get all those calories coming into you. Whereas when you eat the orange, you don't absorb all those calories. Some of it comes out in your stool. So in general, don't drink juices, fruit juices, sugary solutions, because all those calories are just going into you and you're going to gain weight. So in that sense, drinking water is obviously healthier. But when it comes to hydration, the question of whether you have 42 liters of water in your body as a man, it doesn't matter what you drink. It could be tea, coffee, soda. That for maintaining hydration or preventing dehydration, any fluid, soup, it doesn't matter what it is the same exact thing. It's all water. One popular notion is that drinking beverages with caffeine or alcohol will dehydrate you. But if that's true, it's extremely negligible. So just forget about it. I mean, but you'll read about that if you have too much coffee or alcohol, you're going to get dehydrated. It's just not true. In a 2016 randomized trial, control trial of 72 men, for instance, concluded that the hydrating effects of water, lager, coffee, and tea were all the same. And it should be, it's just water. Okay, continuing on with that theme, water is a better choice. And also, you can get water from what you eat. Remember that fluid-rich foods and meals like fruits, vegetables, soup, sauces all contribute to your water intake. And also, as I said, you're actually making water from the food you eat internally. You generate about a third of a liter, or about a glass and a little bit of water a day just from the biochemical metabolism of the food you make. Water is one of the byproducts, even though you didn't ingest any water, you generate it in your body, but it's about a half a glass to a glass. What about electrolytes? You'll hear a lot about that. Some sport drink ads might have you think you constantly have to be replenishing your electrolytes to keep them in check, but there's absolutely no scientific reason for healthy people to drink beverages with electrolytes added. What are electrolytes? These are what we call ions, sodium, potassium, chloride, magnesium. These are all electrically charged minerals that are all present in all our body fluids and urine. That's what electrolytes are. And they're essential for the proper functioning of all our cells, nerves, muscles, brain. Every cell has electrolytes. Sodium, actually sodium and chloride, two ions, two electrolytes, sodium and chloride, is what salt is made out of, table salt. And if you have too much of that, it can lead to the retention of water and increase your blood pressure, because water always follows the salt for reasons that I won't get into today. But just take that as a given, that the more salt you take in, that your kidney doesn't get rid of, okay, with that proviso that your kidney doesn't get rid of it, because normally the kidney will get rid of the salt also. But during the time that the kidney hasn't gotten rid of all of it, you will retain water, and that will lead to increased blood pressure. But when you become dehydrated, you also get thirsty when you ingest more water. So let's say you do get dehydrated. Let's say you're sweating. You just went for a run and you lost a couple of liters through your skin. Now your total body water went from 42 to 40 liters. You'd be in the dehydrated category, but that does two things. One, you get thirsty, so your intake of water will increase. And secondly, that situation causes the kidney to decrease its water output. So you have more money coming into the bank, you're drinking more, and you have less water coming out in the urine, you're spending less money. And so the amount of money in the bank goes up. And that's what happens. Same sort of thing with water. The input increases and the output decreases, and you return the amount of water in the body back to, in that example, in a male, 42 liters, even though initially it was 40 liters, the patient or the person lost 2 liters sweating. What about drinking more water even when I'm not thirsty? Will that improve my health? No. Of course, certain people with conditions like kidney stones who have to maybe drink more water, or rare diseases like polycystic disease of the kidney, make an effort to drink a little more water than their thirst would tell them to. But these are specific medical conditions where that might help. But most healthy people who blame the feeling of being ill on being dehydrated may actually feeling off because they're drinking too much water. So it's not uncommon to have someone say, oh, I just don't feel well. I feel dehydrated. And they actually may not feel well because they're drinking too much. Or they'll get a headache, or they feel bad and they're thinking, oh, I'm dehydrated, I need to drink more. And they keep drinking more and more and more. And they keep feeling worse and worse and worse because they're overhydrated. But drinking more water, even when I'm not thirsty, and continuing with this theme, will this improve my health? If you drink at a rate beyond what your kidneys can excrete, then what happens is the electrolytes in your blood get too diluted, and it could make you feel off. In the most extreme case, if you drink too much water in a short period of time, this can lead to a condition called hyponatremia. And it means that the sodium concentration in your blood is decreased. And it's not because you have less sodium, it's because you have too much water. So the concentration decreases. And if the sodium gets too low, it can actually lead to brain swelling and neurologic problems like seizures, coma, and death. In 2007, there was a 28-year-old woman who died of excessive water after drinking nearly 2 gallons of water over 3 hours. I was involved with this as one of the medical experts, actually. It was several years ago, but she drank about 2 gallons of water in 3 hours while taking part in a radio station's contest. They called it Hold Your Wee for a WII constant, which challenged participants to drink water and then go as long as they could without urinating. She died. I mean, it was so sad. And then there was a whole lawsuit. And then in 2014, there was a 17-year-old high school football player in Georgia who died after drinking 2 gallons of water and 2 gallons of Gatorade. So you just can't drink and think it's a benign thing, especially you don't know what you're doing to the biochemistry and physiology of your body. You're just doing it blind. So it's not something you should play around with or guess or go by what you hear on TV or your friends tell you at church or in your home. Just, you know, treat it very carefully how much water you're drinking. And as you'll see at the end, the bottom line is go by when you're thirsty. That's when you should drink water. If you're not thirsty, you don't need to drink unless you have certain medical conditions. That's a separate story. So the condition has become enough for exercises that when someone collapses during a race, people respond not by thinking they're dehydrated, but because they took too much water prior to the race. And they have hyponatremia. They actually are overhydrated, is what coaches and other people think about now. You would think before, oh, they collapsed during the race, they collapsed because they're dehydrated. No, everyone knows now that you should drink water before the race. But some people drink way too much and actually get a low sodium in their blood and are overhydrated, and that's why they collapse. So it's the exact paradoxical converse. But in regular average people, developing hyponatremia, which means a low sodium in your blood from being overhydrated, is pretty rare. So how do I know if I'm hydrated enough? Your body will tell you. The notion that staying hydrated requires complex calculations and instantaneous adjusting to avoid dire health consequences is entirely incorrect. And one of the best things you can do is stop thinking about it. Stop making that a priority, how many glasses of water you drink in a day, if you're a normal person. And when you look at the human body, it's very interesting. You're mostly water. Your brain is 75% water. You can see only the bones have a very low percentage. The liver is 85% water. We are basically water. In fact, those of you that are old enough might have seen a Star Trek episode in 1967. It was called Devil in the Dark. And there were these silicon life forms called the Horta that used to burrow through rocks. They lived by making tunnels through rocks. And when they first encountered the humans, they called humans ugly bags of water. And that's actually, I don't know about the ugly, but we are bags of water. So the take-home message from today is stop overthinking water. Stop concentrating on how much water you drink. Go by your thirst and actually your total body weight, because your day-to-day changes in weight are due to water in and water out, assuming that you've gone to the bathroom and you've urinated and excreted the stool. The weight changes from day to day are water. And in general, if you're healthy and you have normal heart, normal liver, normal kidneys, whatever you drink's coming out in the toilet. So don't spend a lot of money also on expensive drinks. All these different types of water you can get, pH balanced water, oxygenated water. You're just taking you're taking your money and you're putting it into the toilet. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. But you're not doing anything healthy for your body. You're not changing your blood biochemistry. You're not making yourself healthier. You're not making your kidney work harder and then making it clear out the poisons and toxins. It's erroneous thinking. So I think I'll stop there and open it up for anyone who might have any questions. No questions from anybody? Okay. Okay, everybody. Well, that's the talk for today. Go by your thirst and don't think about how much water you drink so much unless you're an exerciser or you have a disease of one of the organs I mentioned where you have to use your intellect and not this sensation of thirst only as you have to if you're completely healthy. Okay, everyone, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next month.